record on this. Okay, hi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening if you're in Europe, Africa time zone. Hi. This is our first actually valuable synchronous session for Career Lab. The last one was just the welcome, the orientation. So this is one of my #1 favorites to start with. This is Lisa. She is an engineering manager at Netflix. We have previously worked together. She's the director of Women Who Code, and just an all-around super duper mega incredibly inspiring tech lady. So she's here today to tell us a little bit more about how to tell our story and how to refine the things that we're saying about ourselves. And yeah, I'll let you take it away. This is great.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. This is one of my very favorite things to do in the world. So let me start my sharing here.
I probably need to allow that.
Oh, yes.
I'm new to Zoom. I'm just kidding.
All right, here we go. Share that. Okay. Can people see how to tell my story? Okay, awesome. Yay. So, friends.
Wait a minute. Can y'all see it too? It just went weird for me, but it could be my internet.
Oh, wait.
Like real small now. There. And
is that better?
That's better.
That's better. Okay. Moving it onto the other desktop, it didn't like that. So that's fine. We're going to leave it here. It's all good. Hi, friends. Thank you for suffering through me. I'm also new to Zoom. It's my first time. So this is how to tell your story. Let's see if I can. Here's my controls. I went too far. Oh my gosh. This just says hi. I'm a hiring manager. I've had lots of jobs and I've hired for lots of jobs. So that's why I'm here to talk to you about this today. You can find me on our Collab Lab Slack at Lisa. So stories are the most powerful form of human communication. This is why we're here. This is a super important way for you to say what it is you want to do, and your tools and types of storytelling we're going to talk about today to how to get the job that you want. Everybody has a resume, right? You can make a list of all the things that you've done and all the things that you've accomplished, but your story is yours. So it is unique and it's powerful. And I want you to lean into that because it's a really powerful tool for making progress in any sort of job setting, even if it's just a practice. All right, so what's a job? And I promise this isn't a trick question. A job is every job posting that you see out there is a problem. Is a problem that the hiring manager has that they need to solve, and you are the solution. So we're going to talk about how you can address that very specifically through telling stories. And here's my story to start off with. As a hiring manager, I'm not going to post this job unless I have a very specific need, right? So that's got to be out there. Right now, my company is scaling and my internal tools team has to grow with them. So I've been hiring for the last several months. And the last time we had this together, I had 5 open positions and I've had 7 and almost done filling them. It's very exciting for me. But we're going to use some stories today to demonstrate how you can become the solution to somebody's problem, right? So I know some job announcements are ridiculous lists of things that no single human can embody, and that's ridiculous. So I go around and I talk to companies about not doing that anymore. But in the meantime, I want you to take this part to heart. If you see something in that job announcement that looks exciting to you, apply for the job. There's like no downside there. I know it's exhausting and you're putting yourself through a lot of things, but you're not going to know unless you apply. And I know women in particular don't apply for jobs unless they meet 100% of those listed qualifications. Ignore that. If you see something you like, apply for it, go for it. Okay, so we're going to build up a toolbox for you that you're going to use to go through this job process, this job application process. Okay, the first thing, obviously, your resume and cover letter. We're going to talk more about cover letter in a second. Some sort of writing or a portfolio or a website, and your social media. So here's some resume tips just off the top of my head as a hiring manager. Think about your resume like a billboard, not a novel, right? You've got to grab the hiring manager's attention within the first 30 seconds to 1 minute. I have a little function in my applicant tracking system so I can like scroll through all of the applicants in a role. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time digging around. I want you to tell me right off the top why I care about you as an applicant. So it should be eye-catching, but not too busy. I know we've seen some extreme examples of things with like pie charts and breakdowns and graphs. If those work for the job that you are interested in, like if you're looking at a data scientist job or a data engineer job, charts and tables look great. If you're not, maybe think about another way to present those things that is more on brand with what you're looking for. So you can do either a functional resume or a chronological resume. A functional resume obscures gaps or non-linear progressions in your career. And I am a non-linear path kind of person. So this is not a knock on that at all. But it sometimes helps if you can group together things that are similar and make it look like a lot of work in a single area. So you can cherry pick elements out of every job you've had and make a functional resume. And that it helps you take jobs that are dissimilar and find their commonalities, especially when you're switching careers. You're going to want to pick out the things that are relevant to the job that you're looking for, but you've already done some things. So don't discount the things that you did that were not specifically in the tech field if you're looking for a tech job now, but make sure that you probably always had some aspect of technology in every job you've had, because it's the modern world we live in. So lean on those things. And you can come at your functional groups, things like cost savings, productivity increases, things that you did that were tangible, that were demonstrable. That's always a great way to get your point across to a hiring manager. Like, I did X thing and it resulted in X thing. That's a really great way to make sure that you are demonstrating that you're a value add to any any hiring manager's portfolio. So speaking of portfolios, your writing, your portfolio, your website, don't just give me a link to your portfolio or your repo without telling me why. Like, if you have your GitHub repo in there, that's great, but tell me why why do I want to go there? What's in there? Like, I'm not saying hiring managers think you're going to rickroll them, but like, explain to me why I want to go spelunking around in your repos. So like, talk about the project, link to a GitHub repo and say like, I did this thing. I use these languages and frameworks. My objective was this. I learned this. I tried this and it didn't work. Give me a little like TLDR on why this project matters. Then I'll go look at your code. Tell me, if you don't have anything else, tell me why you did it. Like, even if it was just practice, tell me what you were hoping to achieve. Typically when you're building an app, it's because you have a need. What is that need? What were you trying to fill? What were you looking at when you started working on this project? And the like tangible things that you did, like, we built this app because there was this need in the marketplace. When I go to, code school demos, there's a lot of really strong personal stories there about why they did the project they did for their capstone, those kinds of things. Think about why you worked on that. So you can include dates or not in your resume. It's up to you. I typically don't, because I'm an old, and if I put my college graduation date on there, many people wouldn't talk to me because they think I'm some sort of fossil. It's also on the other end of the spectrum. Like if you're a recent graduate, sometimes putting your graduation date on there is like, despite the fact that it shouldn't be, a hiring manager is like, oh, too young. Yeah, they've not had any experience. So it's up to you. If you have some place where if you've had tenure at some place, like if you spent a long time working somewhere, even if it's not in your field, you might want to show the dates that you started and ended a job. Know that they are not a requirement, no matter what the applicant tracking system said. You don't have to disclose any of that. Your information is yours. And dates can sometimes be confusing if you've held concurrent positions. Like I had 2 hiring managers that were all hung up on the fact that it looked like I started like 4 things in a row, and then one was a consultancy that I did for a while, one was an advisory board, but they all overlapped, and it looked kind of confusing. So if you feel like you're gonna have to spend more time explaining it than not, you can leave them out. So cover letter, excuse me, we should over back a little bit. So your cover letter, include one or not. It's really your preference. There's no real standard. They're not necessarily required, but it is a place where you can expand on the narrative of your resume. Some applicant tracking systems don't allow them. Some applicant tracking systems ask for a little fill out this essay question. So that's a place where you can, choose parts of a cover letter that you have and drop them in that essay. But basically right here, think of your cover letter as the narrative and your resume as the bullet points. So that narrative can include anything like why you'd be the perfect person for the job. I included a cover letter one time. We had just gone through a crippling snowstorm in my area because I live in the South and we don't know how to handle snow. And so in my cover letter, I said I'd be the perfect employee for this job because I live right across the street from the office. So even if it snows 10 feet, I will be there. I am gluten-free, so I won't steal your bagels. And I'm only 4'11", so I don't take up much space. So I'm the perfect asset to add into your group. And I had just done it as a toss off, a throwaway. And later on, my COO was like, no, I remember that cover letter. That was one of the ones that stuck out to me. So, if you can find a way to be memorable, do it. It's definitely, I always read them if they're included. There are some hiring managers who don't take that time. You're never really going to know. So it's definitely a way to practice your writing and a way to make sure that you're honing your storytelling skills. So it's never a bad thing, but also, you make the call. So writing, and by this, I mean any sort of posts that you've made anywhere. If you have, if you write on Medium, if you have a blog, if you are, LinkedIn posts, anything like that shows you're involved, that you're thinking about the work that you're doing, if you're resharing things and the learnings that you got from them, that kind of stuff. Make sure that your portfolio or your writing links to things that are alive. I have had to edit my splash page a number of times because all the websites I built of yore have now gone through many refreshes. In my fancy past, I built the Vermont Creamery cheesemakers website, and so I used to have that as a showpiece on there, but they went and rebuilt it. It's fine. So just make sure that those things are existent anymore, or take screenshots. So if you don't have, if there's no if the website has gone rogue or gone away, or the company was purchased perhaps before the website that you carefully crafted for them went live, take some screenshots and make sure that you have some sort of demonstration of what you're trying to prove there. And then social media. Make sure that you're on LinkedIn. We've got LinkedIn review as part of this. Make sure that your LinkedIn is clean looking, and there's lots of fun stuff that you're gonna learn, I think, from Stacy in the how to make your LinkedIn look awesome session. But make sure that, you've got professional-ish looking headshot and some sort of, again, sort of eye-catching, like in your title area. Make sure that you're saying like the thing that you want to do or the thing that you are. And you don't need to put aspiring software developer. You are software developers. That's what you need there. So make sure, everything that you want is on there. Your certifications, ask for endorsements, all those things. Make sure you have, doesn't have to be related to the specific job you're looking for, but just make sure that you've got everything on there. So Twitter, it's been around for a long time. If you're going to be on Twitter, I've been on since 2008. It's a really long time. Make sure your Twitter posts reflect the you of today. So if you need to go back and prune things out of there before you add and know that there are some places that will look, even if you don't include it. So make sure that it is reflective of your values currently. And you can delete whatever you want. Insta, but only if it's relevant. Like if you're going for a design job and you've got a portfolio there, that's great. But you maybe, my Insta is full of tattoos and food. And I don't know that that would be necessarily relevant for jobs that I want. I have no skill as a tattoo artist, so I don't think I'm gonna be doing that. And then, for that also, as a tech job, GitHub, Stack Overflow, any open source projects you participate in, those are considered social media as well. Again, make sure that they reflect the you of today, and that you have been participating as a good citizen in open source projects, and that you answered Stack Overflow questions, politely, not like a jerk, that kind of stuff. So here is my splash page website. And it's very basic. It's who I am, what I do. Here's all the organizations that I work with. And here's how to get in touch with me. So it doesn't have to be, this is just a one page. I was experimenting with a headless CMS. So this is no database behind this. So you can play around with whatever you want, but just make it something that like, it doesn't have to be huge number of pages. It doesn't have to be like, a grand masterwork. If you have all of your contact information, and you have some, follow links for things that are meaningful to you, that's perfect. This is a picture that a coworker of mine took because he said I looked like I was dressed like a spy that day. And I was like, okay, that seems cool. I don't usually love pictures of myself. This one seems fine. All right, so now we're going to talk about, you've got your toolkit of all of the physical objects that you need. And now we're going to talk about how you're going to tell your story. So there's a couple different types of methods that we're going to do here. So the first one we're going to talk about is the journey. So the journey is like, what are the things that led you to the place you are now? This is great for non-linear career havers or career switchers. Like, what was the thing that catalyzed? What were you like? What did you do before, and why did you decide to do this thing? Talk about the interesting places that you visited along the way, the things that you experienced throughout that journey. Those are all elements of what you are doing today. There's a very famous construction here for the journey, the monomyth, a story about yourself, like a journey when you cover the unknown and the known, like where you explored things, you took a coding class online and got hooked, or you visited a website and found something broken and thought, hey, I could do better than that, and so you did. But it shows where you learned and you grew. It shows where you took risks, and it shows the benefits of taking risks. So a pathway. So this is very similar to a journey, but it's different by chronology. So the pathway kind of shows how you made it all the way through. The journey can like cherry pick from wherever you were. So journey is more, the pathway is more chronological. The journey is more epic sprawling, but you can tell similar stories about different jobs or experiences, find a through line that matters to you. Like I worked for all these companies that I worked for because they had a social justice mission, or, I wanted to pursue technology because of all these things that happened to me in my past, or I was inspired by an event that happened in my life, and I took a different path. So those are all real powerful ways of moving through that. So the next type we've got here is the touchstone. So the touchstone is like where you are now, but what brought you to this place. So it's similar to the previous two, but this one is really strong on your central passion. Like this is the thing that this is the why of me. This is why I do this thing. This is why I wanted to do this. This is why I want this job that you're offering. This is why I would be the perfect person. It's these things that matter to me, and that's why I've pursued this. So there are three different but very similar methods, and you can combine all three of those. You can use the same story and tell it from these different perspectives, depending on different settings that you're in. Remember, if you're going through an interview sequence, you're going to meet a lot of people. So you're going to need to have a bunch of these sort of ready for answering questions to be able to tell a story. You're going to encounter lots and lots and lots of interviews where they're going to say, tell me about a time when ... And you should have some ready-made, like, haha, kind of stories that you can pull out of your pocket. And you can tell the same story from different angles, depending on different people that you're speaking with. And that way you don't feel like you're repeating yourself over and over again. It can be frequently a little mentally jarring as you go through this process to be like, I'm pretty sure I said this already, but I don't know if it was to this person. So like you can, if you have some different angles on the way you tell your story. So, I'm going to tell you my story. So I've had a very non-linear career path, and I consider that to be a feature, not a bug. It's given me a broad perspective and empathy for building software for people. And at one point in my career, there was a job advertisement for a React engineer with 3 to 5 years of experience. This was a number of years ago, so many number of years ago that React itself was probably only about 3 years old. So you can immediately dismiss the 3 to 5 years of experience on anything, because we all know everything's changing very quickly. So I applied for this job because I knew about the organization, and I knew the person who was leaving the job, and I knew what she was doing, and I knew that I could do that as well. And I said, look, nobody that has 3 to 5 years of experience with React is local. They're probably still working at Facebook, and they don't want to come to Durham for your, at the time, fairly low paying job. I did not say that part to their face, but what I did say was, let me show you the JavaScript framework adoption and abandonment charts over the last couple of years. They're like the Himalayas. Every 2 years, there's something new. Do you want somebody who only knows this one thing, or do you want somebody with a proven track record of language acquisition? And they bought it and they hired me. So I got to learn React on the job. So you don't have to have done the thing. You can say you're interested in the thing. You can say that you've had exposure to the thing. You don't have to have worked with any sort of language or framework for any particular number of years or amount of time to be able to get that job, because it changes so rapidly. This is the joy and the bane of the profession that we're in here. It's going to change. So what you need to be able to show and demonstrate is your resilience and your ability to roll with those changes, the fact that you continue to learn. So my philosophy is that I'm looking for somebody that is going to fit the need that I have for this position. And it's less about the number of years experience they have, and it's more about how do they problem solve? How do they approach problems? Can you solve problems with code? I don't care what language it is. Can you take this thing and break it down into its parts and understand the order of operations and take into account things like scale? How would you approach that? You have, even if I hire somebody that has all that experience, they still have to learn how we do it wherever we are. So no matter how much experience you have, even if you get to the point where you're like 10, 15 years in your career, you're still going to have to learn things. So embracing that learning mindset like you already are is the way to succeed and move forward. So I'm looking for people like you who are either switching careers or honing their careers because you have an energy and a passion for this that people who've been doing it for maybe 10 or 15 years perhaps have lost. They have forgotten why this is super fun. So you have a special energy that only you can bring. And I want you to tell me that story. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into a little breakout sessions. And do we have the worksheet linked anywhere, Stacy? It's really just 4 questions, basically.
I think that I do have it in the GitHub repo. Let me grab it real quick.
Cool. So basically, I think we're going to set, if we have the right number of humans, we're going to set people up in pairs. And sometimes it's easier if you tell your story to somebody else and they take notes. So I joined this bio writing circle with a bunch of other women who speak at conferences, because it's terrible. Writing your own bio is terrible and it's painful. So we were in groups of 3 where one person was asking questions of the other and the third person was taking down notes. So if you need to write a bio or anything like that, tell your story out loud to somebody else, and they're going to be far better at picking up the things that are important. Like you're like, I say these things over and over again, and people are like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And you're like, okay, great. You fail to recognize your own shining brilliance sometimes. So go talk to other humans and they will recognize it for you. That's a really good tip. So we have questions, Stacy?
No questions. Let's see.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, including me. I can go into a breakout room too. Let's see, participant. Okay, so in the chat, I just linked to the GitHub repo that we've been using as a resource for Career Lab, and you'll see the 4 prompts that Lisa was just mentioning. Do you all see that? Thumbs up in the chat. Okay, cool. I'm just going to assume yes. Okay, cool. You can see. Any last thoughts before we go into breakout rooms, Lisa?
Yeah, I mean, if so when we come back, we're going to do Q&A. So like if you have questions that you want me to answer now before you go in the break room, happy to, but we're also going to have some time to talk about any thoughts that you had or any difficulties you might experience while you're working through those questions there. Awesome.
Yeah, so again, we'll break out and then just go in and tell each other your stories, and the other person can take notes, which can, like Lisa was saying, can be really helpful to capture the important, inspiring bits and talk it through. So I'm saying all this just to kill time as I find out how to do breakout rooms. So, wait, how?
Oh, do I need to stop sharing for us to do
Oh,
this?
maybe let's try that. Like, I don't see the options.
Let's see, where are my controls?
Breakout.
Right, okay.
And if anybody has tips on how to do breakout rooms,
Oh,
where the heck? It used to be so simple.
I know.
View options. Oh, here we go. Stop participant screen sharing.
Ah, there we go. I found it. We found it at the same time. Yes.
Okay. Now, how? I thought it was under participants.
Same. All right. Well,
I'm not seeing it. What the heck? Is this like a feature that you have to
maybe
support Zoom? What's it say, Jennifer?
Okay, so it says enabling breakout rooms. So you have to go to account settings.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know how updated this is, but it says you need to go into your account settings, and then in the account settings, you have to turn on, flip that little switch to allow breakout rooms and allow hosts to assign participants to breakout rooms when scheduling.
We can skip past that too. Like, so this is a thing that we can, y'all can do at another juncture. We don't have to.
Let's do that. Should we just do does anybody want to give it a go answering these prompts and just kind of we'll work through one person's and sort of talk about it? Is anybody comfortable doing
that? Would be fun. Would anyone like to volunteer as tribute? The promise will be kind.
It's okay.
Either that or I can just answer questions too. I'm happy to do that. We've got we got some time here where we can
Okay.
just chat with each other too.
Let's do questions.
Okay.
So before we move on to questions, definitely, absolutely 1,000,000% do this exercise with somebody. It is so powerful and so helpful. Exactly everything Lisa already said. It can be so hard to talk about yourselves. And I think that we all feel that very regularly. And so if you can just in a very casual way, meet up with your buddy and tell them your story and like in a very casual way, say the things that inspire you, and they can help you kind of capture the things that really resonate well with them, help you put together a much more powerful story, I feel like, than sometimes we can do on our own. When we're like, I want to tell all these things and I don't know how to put it into words. It's like, just say it, just say the story. So do the thing. I'm happy to help if you need help. Okay, so there were some questions. Jennifer had a question.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's some questions in the chat.
Have had applications. Jennifer, your question about do managers use the writing samples to gauge our ability to communicate? So some applications like Zapier's, for example, just ask a bunch of questions. How do you use those as a hiring manager?
So I think it depends kind of on the role that I'm looking for, but like everybody is going to have to communicate with everybody else. And especially, you know, as we're all remote, your written communication is going to be super crucial. So I may or may not look at your writing samples to determine whether or not you express yourself clearly. But more likely, I'm going to ask you about that as well. Like, how do you communicate best? What is your preferred methodology? How do you learn best? I want to know that about you. So it depends, obviously, like what kind of a job you're looking for as to how important that is. But mostly we want to see, can you string a sentence together? Can you express a thought completely? Because you're going to have to do that with any job. Doesn't matter what you're doing. You're going to have to communicate with other humans, and you're going to have to give them pieces of information. You're going to have to acquire pieces of information from them. So like, how do you exchange that? So I think it depends, like what the objective of that goal, that job is, and what the problem is that hiring manager is trying to solve, but also like it's universal. It's a thing you got to do. So I don't, that you don't have to like write novels, but maybe have somebody else cast an eye over it before you hit send.
Right. You want to make sure that it's clear and that, again, like this is a reflection of the person they're going to be working with daily if you're hired. So show them who you are, show them the way you communicate. If you are like very like kind of tactical in your communication, use a lot of formatting and bullets to sort of draw attention, do that, demonstrate that, because that's the person you are. Or if you are a bit more verbose and have a really good way of communicating like really complex ideas in a simple way, make sure that shines, because that's your chance. That's the chance.
Absolutely. So there was a question about avoiding dates in the ATS, and you're not wrong. Sometimes you can pick a singular date that's like yesterday and use that date throughout and just like stymie the system. If you have to, you have to. But also like as a hiring manager, I don't tend to look at dates. I don't look at chronologies. I don't look to see if there've been gaps in people's resume. I know there are some hiring managers that do that. That's not important to me. I don't care. Everybody's had a life, and sometimes your life does not always mean that you are working exactly the place you want to be. And that's fine. So yeah, do what you can to not. It's just like in many states, it is now illegal to ask you what you're currently making. There are some states in which it is not permitted to ask for dates as well, but it varies wildly and it's not super consistent. So avoid if you can, if you want to, but also don't get too hung up on it. It's going to be fine either way.
You know how you were saying don't include, you don't have to include dates on your resume and stuff. Would you still recommend including like time spent or just nothing at all? Like software engineer, 2 years, 4 months, or just software engineer?
So I think it depends on what you're trying to show there. Like if you're trying to say that like you've been doing this thing for a goodly number of years, great, include it. If you're trying to prove that you're not like an absolute beginner, also great. But honestly, like if you held the title of software engineer, I don't care for how long. It doesn't really matter to me. There are some places that are going to look down on like, oh, you've had a new job every year for the last 5 years. Yeah, sometimes that's the only way you can advance. Excuse me, I frog this morning.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes that's the only way you can get paid. Sometimes that's the only way you can get experience. Systemic discrimination has done a lot of things on us. So like, I don't look at those things.
That's good. There's a lot of questions about ATSs. Mandy had a question. I've read that resumes with more than one column will break when put through some ATSs.
So that's a great point. Try to keep your formatting eye-catching enough without making it too like. The other thing you do is if you upload a PDF, it will either not parse it, which is fine, and it'll just show the raw resume as you uploaded it, or it'll be able to pick out the top parts because PDFs are structured. We're using a parsing agent called text kernel that will look through PDFs. Yeah, it's standard with some like I think that's what LinkedIn uses to parse theirs into resumes. It's not flawless. Every ATS sucks except for the next one, which sucks worse. So like they're all going to have their flaws. I wish I could tell you one way to beat them all, but do try to keep your resume readable enough. And there's a couple of places, what was that one that I sent out? There's a couple of places where you can see what your resume looks like in an ATS. Now it's not a universal standard. Let me see if I can find it. If I can't find it right off the top of my head here, I will.
So is it kind of your general guidance to just
yeah, so it's jobs, it's called jobscan.co. So it's alleged to boost your resume score chances. I don't know if it's free, then use it. If it's not, you decide whether or not it's an investment. Excuse me, but it will. It's in theory supposed to parse your resume like an ATS and show you what it's highlighting. So it might be helpful as a demo. Yeah.
I think that kind of, Mandy, does that answer your other question about any tools to help polish your resume for an ATS system? Seems like they're out there, but there's no solid way.
Yeah, I don't know a solid way forward. And I don't even know how to practice that. The good news is that just about you definitely always want your resume in a PDF format. That way it can't get monkeyed with. And especially if you're using like Office 365 products that split it into the two files, things will get stripped out. So a PDF is your rock solid answer to doing that. And that way nobody can tinker with it and it won't get messed up by the ATS.
I love that. Okay, Jennifer asked, I've been seeing junior roles with over 500 applicants in one day. What can I do to make mine stand out? I've already messaged the recruiter on LinkedIn, but I'm competing with other people who have more projects, more experience, and more languages.
Yeah, so I don't know how you can stand out. All I can tell you is to keep doing it. I was looking to add diversity to my team. So I spent the time and I went through 4,321 LinkedIn profiles. So it depends. There's definitely going to be hiring managers and recruiters that are going to spend that time because of their directive. And there's definitely going to be ones that are like, that's too many things. I'm just going to look at the first ones. But know that, if it's something that 500 people are applying for, that you can definitely stand out in terms of, this experience alone, going through Collab Lab is a pretty big deal. You now have experience that a lot of other people who are just getting out of code school don't have. You've worked on a collaborative project. You know how to work a GitHub repo. You know how to do pull requests. You know how to deal with merge conflicts. Those are all really important things that you don't get typically in code school. So you have to have gotten them at your first job. So you've kind of got your first job experience now after having gone through Collab Lab. So you are going to stand out. And I know it's super easy for me to say because I have had roughly 1,000 jobs, but there is a job out there for you. And the hiring market is so hot right now. Honestly, maybe I need to redirect all these ones. Somehow an old resume of mine has gotten out on file, and I've been getting calls and solicitations for entry-level content management system work. And I was like, friend, you either have my resume from 2009, where I would have been super excited with this job, or you have me confused with another Lisa Smith. Either way, I am currently an engineering manager, and not really interested in contract duple work in someplace in South Carolina. So, but like I should probably I'll just start redirecting all of those to the Collab Lab, because they're all these great, like, hey, come start with us kind of positions. And that's the thing too, consider contract work. Like, it's not awesome, I will say straight up, but it is also a way to add things to your resume really quickly and give yourself a lot of experience with the, like, learning how to start a job somewhere, because there's always going to be that, you know, that entry period, and it's not always super fun, but contracts can be a way of, like, yeah, you can experience that, and you can have a bunch of jobs and work a bunch of places, and no one will look at that askance. You'd be like, yeah, I had 5 contracts in a row. I'm a continuous employee contract worker, which is also a thing that people are leaning into right now. In our global economy.
It is like the market is so hot right now. And I totally feel you on those 501 day things. One thing that I like really stands out to me when I'm looking through applicants is if they seem like they're refined. And by that, I mean, when I go to their GitHub, do they have a personal README that is telling a story? Like, oh, they're buttoned up. Do they have a website that is clear and easy for me to get a picture of who they are? Because I want to see that you're a person. And I see a lot of applicants that are just like, you know, there's no website, their GitHub is almost empty. It's like, tell me something about you, like refine everything that you have. So when I look at you, I'm like, wow, look at this person. I feel like I know them already. Hired. I love it.
So Jennifer, that's a real interesting question. And so I know at least our ATS, and I'm pretty sure this is standard, those two things are separated from one another. So like the form goes into another, and they just collect that sort of mass data in a table so that they can say, we've had X number of humans in this demographic category apply. So it doesn't stay associated with your specific application, specifically in theory to prevent bias, so that there is no, like, you know, straight up identifier that you are in an underrepresented group in any way. So that can be I mean, you can still fill it out so that they know who's applying for their jobs, but it doesn't necessarily enhance your profile as a candidate that might add diversity to a team. As an ambiguously brown woman in technology, my LinkedIn picture, I think, probably does more for me than anything else. People are, if nothing else, motivated to be like, what is she? They assume they're getting multiple vectors of diversity, and I don't disabuse them of that, but also, like, it's a little tiring.
What other questions do y'all have? About hiring in general. Lisa's the perfect person to ask. Doesn't even have to be about telling your story.
That's right. Absolutely. Anything about my life as a hiring manager, I'm happy to share. This is really great preparation. Like, definitely do the mock interviews. The way you build these muscles is just by doing it. So look at every application that you submit as practice. It might not get you the job, but you have more experience now.
Yeah. Jennifer.
Yeah, so we have an internal jobs board, and those folks definitely get priority, because sometimes it's a very specific, like, I'm hiring for a vendor management engineer, and it's going to be better if they already know how Netflix does stuff, because if they're trying to come on and learn that and trying to onboard vendor contractors, it's going to be super interesting. So that's going to be where I'm looking there. So it depends though. Like at Zapier, there's a wonderful program called PI, or Path into Engineering. And that's for folks from other departments to be able to explore whether or not they want to become engineers. It's kind of a rotational situation where you move through different teams and you learn different aspects. And you're paired with somebody as a coding buddy. And I believe our own Fair Stacy here is did you move through Pi, right?
No, I didn't go through Pi, but I did help kind of like work.
She helped create Pi and the philosophy behind it.
Right.
So yeah, so that is honestly, Mandy, that is honestly the question right there. And you want to make sure that like I, at the moment, am unable to hire anyone that is early career. because of the way my team moves. And I don't have the bandwidth to support a junior at the moment. I hate it. So I'm helping work with the emerging talent team at Netflix to support them in their goals. And we do have 2 brand new streams for engineers that are early career engineers at Netflix. So the idea there is it's going to be kind of like an internship where there will be a cohort, a bunch of people will be brought on together, and they'll have some special extra togetherness and additional sessions beyond just the standard onboarding. But the receiving team has to be ready to support that. I don't want to set anybody up for a bad experience. So it is really important that the team that you're going to have the bandwidth to support you properly, because feeling like you're adrift and alone is it's hard. It adds an extra element of like, when you don't have anybody to calibrate against, it's really hard. So being a solo practitioner anywhere is rough. So if you're joining a team and you don't have the collaboration aspect of it, it's going to be less fulfilling, I think.
Yeah, it's not going to be good for you, and it's not going to be good for them either. Like, if they're already telling you that they're weary about it, it doesn't sound great. But if you love the company and you do want to grow in there, and you're like, I want to make a case to these people, that I really think that's true. Like, one thing that I did, because I was kind of in the same position where, like, at Zapier, I was in support and they didn't regularly hire support people for engineering. And so I found ways in my day job to also do the engineering job, so that as soon as I saw an internal position come open, I applied for it. It was just a regular position. I was like, look, I've already been doing this engineering job for the last year. Here's code of mine that's in production. And I got all the support that I needed on my own. Nobody gave it to me. So it's like, you have to prove it to them why it's going to work, because they are nervous. It does take a lot to support a junior. So if you can show them, like, people are already willing to support me, here's artifacts where I've completed work that I've been well supported in, and it didn't detract from anybody's, day job or whatever. And they can kind of support that as well, the people who are helping you. Like, yeah, this was actually really fulfilling for me as well as an engineer to help mentor somebody. Just like collect those artifacts.
So I think Jennifer has a question and Mandy has a question. I want to do Mandy because it was kind of connected to that. So like on a day-to-day basis, what that means is that there has to be more senior engineers who are willing to exercise that mentorship muscle, and not just like, go look over there, right? Like somebody who will engage in pair programming, somebody who will walk you through scenarios, somebody who will show you how it's done, somebody who will be patient, somebody who will be there to answer questions. And so like, depending on your org, that is a requirement to move into a senior or staff level engineering position, is how do you mentor more junior engineers? So like looking for a place that has those. Netflix, we only have one level. Everybody's a senior software engineer. So it's sort of difficult for me to be like mentors juniors. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so on a day-to-day sense, there are some teams who believe it's more heavy than it is. So if you're trying to make a case, I would go about and say, like, here's the things I already know. Here's the things that I'm comfortable doing. Here are the things that I might need some assistance in, and here's stuff that I don't know entirely. And that will give them an idea of like what the breakdown is of what they're going to have to support. So if it's something that you're working toward, do a little investigatory work and see what it is you can handle on your own, see what you already know, and you probably know more than you think you do. Plus, you can always make the case that, like, the company, right? Like, I love Pi because the Zapier part is really hard. So if I have somebody who knows the Zapier part already, I'm winning, right? Like, I can teach anybody how to code.
Exactly.
It's a discrete skill, but like knowing all of the stuff that Zapier has to be, plus somebody coming in from a customer champion role is gold. They have customer empathy for days. Like, they're people who have supported from the other side and know what kind of questions are coming in. Yeah. So also know how to address those things in a really tangible way. And that's important to me.
Yeah. Adding on that, like kind of like Lisa was just saying, when you're making this proposal, be sure to include all of those things. Like, this is why I'm an asset to the company, to our product, to our teams. And another thing is, in that, when you're talking about the things you know, the things you don't know, where you need extra help, I might also include there what you might think a weekly plan would look like for you. So
that's a great idea.
30 minutes of pairing with a mentor every morning. And then every evening, I'm going to have a list of questions. So the next morning, I'm ready to go. I have very specific questions. We're not wasting time, but kind of like show them what it would look like, because they see things in money. And we're like, if you have a senior level engineer with you every morning for 30 minutes, is this value going to pay off with the product that you're producing? So try and lay it out for them a little bit.
And in theory, every team should have some number of like shovel ready projects that have really nice, clear edges around them, really nicely defined problem spaces that are not like, they're low impact to everything else. It's not like, you don't want to roll in there and be like, day one, I'm going to make production level code on this, you know, flagship feature. Maybe not, but also like, here's how you can do some work that supports that, or take some burden off somebody else on the team who is supporting that feature. And that's really valuable to me. Like we hired some contractors to come in and do design system reskin that helped some of my advanced front end engineers move on to some bigger projects. Cause this was a thing, like it was super easy. Blast radius was small. It was, you know, pretty much well-defined. Here's the design system, make it happen over here. So you know, there's always going to be those kind of projects that hang out in any team's backlog. I guarantee it.
And there's like, do like updating websites and stuff.
Absolutely. Every team has a backlog of something that the engineers were like, I would love to do this if I had time, but I ain't got the time. So you are that time. You can be that time. So there was a great question about what are some questions you can ask about the kind of to make sure that you're going to be supported as a junior engineer. So you want to know, have them take you through what onboarding looks like. Like Zapier's onboarding is top notch. And it looks like a very nice funnel where you start off and it's like the Zapier stuff, then your department, and then your team, and then your like specific work product. And it takes about a month to get through all of it. So you want to know if they've got like a coding boot camp, like how do you do stuff there? That's what we do at Netflix. We've got a boot camp that you can go through and learn about how you deploy. We also have a stellar productivity engineering department that 5 commands and you set up your local dev environment and it just works. So you don't have to spend, I know.
That's a lie.
It's legendary. I know. All of my people that have onboarded the last month were like, oh my God. I'm like, right? It's kind of the best thing ever. But you're also going to know that that's not as common. So you're probably going to have to spend some time. So ask questions about how hard is it to set up your local dev environment? What's the assistance there? What do I need to get started? What are the things that I need to know before I can be effective? How quickly are you looking for me to make my first commits? What are the kinds of work projects that you have to support junior engineers? How much time do you have to devote to mentorship? Are there people on your team that are looking for mentorship opportunities? Those are all great questions that you can get at there. So information for projects. So I'm reading Adema's question. So I think the question that you need to ask yourself there is, what is that job announcement asking for? So if the things in your resume are not one-to-one analogs for the things in the position announcement, try to line those things up, because that's going to be the most important thing. So if your project supports something that you saw in that job announcement, like you took on a new framework and you mastered it in this project, and that's the thing they're looking for, highlight that thing. But if it's just a general project where you are showing how you collab, maybe you don't like you put a little blurb about the why and you don't go into too much detail on that. So make sure that you have like a utility resume that's one that you could just like blast out if you see a cool opportunity, but more often try to match the keywords in your resume with those that are in the job announcements, because that's how a lot of ATSs work. They just do like keyword matching. So the more times you can say a thing in your resume that matches a thing that's in their job description, the higher your resume is going to float in their estimation. So some of those ones where you get like an immediate rejection, you probably just haven't keyword matched well, and they've screened it out immediately. It's not fair, but it's how things work at scale, unfortunately. So don't worry so much about repetition. Make sure you're addressing what's in that position announcement and like, here's how I can handle that. Here's what I did like that. Here's the thing that I did that will solve that problem that you have. So So I can't speak to Susanna. I love your question. I can't speak to that in Columbia. I know it doesn't matter to me. I don't have a technology degree either. I was a librarian before I was a computer person. So I know little bits about a lot of things, but no one thing in general. I don't know, but I do know that like what is important to me is that kind of experience. And every place has a like, bachelor's degree and 5 years experience, master's degree and 2 years experience, whatever. Like, so experience equates to education as well. And I would rather have somebody who has been out there doing the thing than somebody who has a theoretical background. So if that's the differentiator, like if I have two entry-level people and one of them's just out of college and one of them's a career switcher who's just been out there doing the thing that is like actual technology, because a CS degree is abstract and it's arcane and it's stuff that like, it's like CS fundamentals, it's algo fundamentals. That's great, but that doesn't get me this thing solved. So, make sure that you have that well-rounded aspect highlighted, and I think you can advance past it. But I know every place is different, so I can't overgeneralize there.
We're at time, so I want to make sure I give you the opportunity to dip because I know you're very busy. If you want to stay and answer the other questions, you can. But
Let me see.
I know that you have so many.
I am good for another hour, so we can.
Cool.
I can happy to answer questions. I don't want anybody to feel like they have to stay though.
Sure. Yeah. If anybody needs to dip, the recording will be in Slack whenever it's uploaded. So no worries. One other thing I want to add to Susanna's question too is a lot of companies just like are really demonstrating your value is really important. So if you can get those tidbits of insight in your resume and in your cover letter that are like, I did X and saved the company this much time or money or whatever. Again, like when it comes to business, it's business and people care about value and money and stuff. So if you can really demonstrate like, this is the value that I provide, that will look really good. And it's okay, like kind of like Lisa did, to be really upfront about your, like non-conventional past or whatever it might be. Like, I know I'm not the candidate that you were requesting in this, but let me tell you why I think I would be a really good fit or why I'm a really good fit, and just like be upfront about it, because that transparency is great.
Absolutely. So that's a question from Fatima. And honestly, Brent, I have never experienced a group interview. Can you tell me a little bit about what that's like? How many people are we talking about?
I can't tell exactly the number of people, but I was asked a question by someone that wants to have such interview. So she got the notification that she is going to have a group interview. So she asked me how it's going to be like. So I don't have an.
Yeah, I've seen it where there's like a panel on the other side where a group of people are interviewing an individual, but not where there's a group, unless we're talking about taking some sort of like an assessment, a group assessment or whatever. So I honestly would not know how to. I think, I don't know if it's like Jeopardy where you got to get in there first and answer the question, but it feels like you want to be as calm and cool as possible, answer questions if they're directed at you, volunteer where you know the answer and you're confident about it, make sure that you're not getting spoken over. If someone interrupts you, call them out on it, because that's super rude. But I don't know that I would have any other real great tips for that. That's a circumstance I've not come across.
I did one group interview like that, not for a developer job, but for a banking job at Wells Fargo, and got the job. And like tips that I would say in that, because the way that they did it was there were 3 hiring managers in the room and 7 like candidates, probably 7 or 8 candidates. And they were going through and like picking people. So Stacy, here's a question for you. Answer the question. So like, you just really want your personality to shine through, because you're up against, like, they're basically comparing you right next to each other. So you want to shine, you want to be the person that they want to work with, and be engaged in what other people are saying. Even if there's not room to like, like respond to them or anything, like look at them when they're talking and nod and make it feel like a conversation, not like you're lined up against the wall just answering questions. Because again, it shows that you're human and you communicate well and you're pleasant to be around. So that's my only tip that I have there. It's hard too, because you're like, everybody's kind of using the same sorts of answers and you feel like you're repeating. So if you do feel like you're repeating something somebody just said, like lean on that and be like, much like Jason just said, I too have experience in this, because again, it shows you're an active listener and you play well in a group setting, but they are very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. That feels like a nightmare scenario. And I'm sorry to everyone who's gone through that. And that's an important thing to add to my list of things to never do during interviewing.
Yes.
It feels real bad.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I'm hiring at scale and even I haven't done that kind of thing, but like, I don't know. I guess, that is a fresh new twist that I have not experienced, friends. I am sorry.
I feel like it happens more when people are hiring for like bulk hires and like it's recruiters and they don't care as much about like, I want a good fit for the team. You know, I'm looking for somebody with these specific qualities. It's like, I don't know, we need 7 people, could be anybody, dap, 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 dap. Like, I would be wary of those.
Yeah. That feels bad. What else can I answer for people?
All right.
Awesome. So you got my, I'm just at Lisa. If you have questions that you think of later, please feel free to hit me up. And I'll drop my Calendly into the Career Lab chat. Please feel free to, if you want to spend some time with me, I'm happy to chat. My calendar is a little bit of it's getting less of a nightmare, but poke me if you can't find any space. And it was so great to spend time with you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so for everybody watching the recording or here right now, I will upload this recording to Slack. Right now, still the same thing you should be working on as before is refining your LinkedIn using the resources that we have in GitHub. The very next synchronous session will be on Wednesday, and that's a LinkedIn profile Q&A. So as you're going through the material right now and updating your LinkedIn, if you're like, I don't really know how to position this experience of mine, or like, how do I write this? Or does this sound good? Or how would you approach this? All of those questions. Bring those, we'll answer them, we'll talk through them. We can get ideas from other collabs of things that they've done that they might be really proud of and worked well. So come ask your questions or just hang out. And let me know if you have any questions. Be really loud in Slack because probably somebody else has those questions too.
Yes.
All right. Good to see you all. See you around Slack. Bye, friends.